Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. and today I'm reviewing Dice Kingdoms of Valeria from Daily Magic Games. And Dice Kingdoms of Valeria is, well, it takes place in the card Kingdoms of Valeria universe. I should say the Valeria universe in general, but probably most resembles card Kingdoms as far as what it's going for. And it's a game which it's a roll and write game for 1 to 5 players in which you're going to be going ahead every single round, rolling dice, and then using those dice to check things off on these various grids in an effort to score as many points as possible by the time you hit the end of the game. Same as most roll and writes out there. To that end, every single round you're going to go ahead and roll dice, and this is where the game will be more or less familiar to you depending on how well you actually know card Kingdoms of Valeria. You're going to go ahead and roll your dice, you'll look at the numbers, we're going to line those up. We have a 6 and a 3, which means we're going to activate any of our 3s, our 6s, and the sum of them are 9s. To that end, we currently have no citizens in the 3 zone. These are the citizens you'll have to unlock. We do have a citizen in the 6 zone, and we don't have a citizen in the 9. You start with the 5 and 6. Again, this is familiar to those of you who've played Card Kingdoms. Because of that, we can go ahead and mark specific citizens in that grid. Because of that, we're going to go ahead and look. The 6 represents that type of citizen. So down here, we're going to go ahead and check that off. We filled in one circle because we have a 1-6 over there. As you build up more citizens of different types, you'll be activating more and filling in more grids, and these 4 grids over here are going to be the trigger for endgame. Once 3 of these 4 grids are filled, that will trigger endgame in the game. Once you're done with that, the active player will go ahead and choose how to combine it. Everyone's going to do this. Everyone's going to get that benefit on their grid, versus the active player over here is going to choose the one of the 3 sectors to go ahead and put numbers in, either attacking enemies on this grid down over here, alternatively going ahead and filling a pathway on this chart over here, or lastly going ahead and getting another citizen. Those are the 3 things you can do with these dice, and you can choose to add the blue dice to any of them if you want, although you don't have to. So to that end, right now, for example, I think I'm going to go ahead and use this 2 to start filling up my citizens. It's early game, I want more of those, so I'm going to go ahead and mark in this citizen over here. I could have filled in the 8 instead by doing the 2 and the 6, but I'm not going to. That's what happens there. I'll take a few more turns just so you can see how this will play out. I'm just going to do it as if I'm single player right now, but a few more turns. We're going to roll these dice again. We see over here we have a 3 and a 1. That's going to be a 3, a 1, and a 4. We don't have any of those. If you don't achieve anything doing this phase, you do get to cross off any one of these. To that end, I'll go ahead and cross off something I don't have right now. I'll cross off this over here. That's going to cross off that grid there. And then that will be done over there. That's going to give us a green spot, which means you can also go ahead. That little green spot is going to activate one of these, so I can go ahead and start crossing off a row there. Some of these bonuses in the box will give you things as you go through them. Now that I'm done with that, I'll go ahead and I'm going to continue the process of trying to build up my grid. I'm actually going to go ahead and get that 6 over there. I'm going to knock in the other 6, but because I'm crossing off a person while doing so, I now have 2 6s, but more importantly, or not necessarily more importantly, but importantly, I'll also go ahead and mark off one of these things along the wall, which we'll see what those do shortly. Again, we'll roll our dice, we'll continue, we'll go ahead and grab these. We have a 2 and a 3, which is a 2, which we have a 2 over here, so we're going to cross off that. We don't have a 3, but we do have a 5, 2 plus 3 equals 5, so we're going to go ahead and cross off one of these over here. That gives us another little pathway marker over there. And then from there, we again can look at our numbers here. I can't do the 6, but I could do the 10, or I could do another pathway. But honestly, with the 4 and the 5 being high enough, I think I'm going to combine these to go ahead and start the process of checking these off over here. We're going to use these to defeat a monster, adding those up. When you do that, you add the total up, and you take the leftmost in a section of monsters. So for example, I could use this to either activate the first one here, the first one here, the first one here, over here, or the first one over here. I'm going to go ahead and mark this off. That's going to be a gold spot, which is going to give me a gold, but also whenever you fight monsters, you get a gold by default. So that's going to give us 2 gold for that, 1 for the bonus spot, and 1 just for fighting monsters in general. Again, we'll do another few turns, just so you can get a sense of how everything goes here. We're going to go ahead and roll this again. We have a 2 and a 4, which is a 2, a 4, and a 6. We have a 2, so we'll take that box. We have 2 6s, so this is going to activate twice now because we have 2 6s. So we'll get a warrior on a wall and a box. The warrior on the wall is going to fill in the shield. Every other one of these is a shield, which means we can now fill in the lowest monster in any one of these 4 sections. So we'll fill in this one over here, which is now going to give us access. We already actually have access to this one over there. We're going to check that off. We can also modify dice because we've now hit this grid, we've earned that bonus on this chart, which is we can modify red dice up or down by 1, giving us a little more flexibility in that sense. We're going to continue this aspect here, and this time around I'm going to compare up the 6 and the 3 to get us a total of 9, and we're going to use those 9 to go all the way down from, let's see, we got from over here, so let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That really should be 10, but we'll just go ahead and do this over here. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which will unlock this grid over here. And that, when we get that over there, we're going to be able to go ahead and gain one of these citizens anywhere else here. And we'll take, this going to be a key citizen, which means we'll take the 3. We want to get that 3 locked in. So you can start to see how everything starts to interlink over here, how all the various things link together. You're going to be going ahead and rolling a die, which will activate your citizens. The more citizens you have, the more perks you'll get on these, as well as trigger an endgame. The more you go ahead and activate the pathways, you'll start getting perks on these pathways, sometimes along the pathway itself, as you can see over here, over here, over here. But also, whenever you hit one of these bubbles, you'll unlock a perk, either one-time use or ongoing manipulation for the game. Additionally, you have over here the opportunity to get more citizens, like we said, as well as fighting various monsters by combining the dice and trying to get these grids. Whoever gets the first to complete all marks in a grid will get the bonus points at the top, and everyone else, if they complete them, will get the bonus points over there. You're going to go ahead, whenever you get coins enough to get to the 6th spot on every coin track, you will get the opportunity to take one of these monuments over here, so up to 5 throughout the course, up to 4 of them throughout the course of the game, and these will all give you point scoring objectives. At the end of the game, you'll add up the points from your 4 monuments, you'll add up any stars you've marked off, various things will give you stars throughout the course of the game, you'll add up points for your circles that you've crossed off, points for the monsters you defeated, plus the summation of all your monuments, and that will be your total score in Dice Kingdoms of Valeria. Hopefully you followed most of that. I know it's a lot of small little dots, but that's the basic gist of it. You're going to roll a dice, everyone's going to get the perks of the black dice, you're going to roll these dice, you're going to combine them whatever way works for you to try to figure out your perfect engine, and with that, let's go ahead and dive into the review, starting off with ease of play. Rules, like most Valeria games, are, and this is not necessarily meant to be a critique against Valeria games. I like Valeria games, but I guess it is a critique against Valeria games. Like most Valeria games, I find the rules more complicated than the game actually is. I don't know how it happens, but in general, I find Valeria games I really enjoy. I like them a lot. Card Kingdom is one of my favorites. I like their games, but I do find their rules always seem more complicated than the game needed to be. I don't know if that's something, I don't know why it is. That's definitely true here. Teaching the game takes you 2 minutes. Learning the rules, a little bit more complicated. Actual game time comes in around 30 to 45. Very accessible overall there. As far as what I like, don't like, and can see others not liking, first of all, you get things on every turn. This is one of those game systems, and I like that game system in general, and I like it in a roll and write as well, where you go ahead and you get things every single turn, you roll the dice, you get the stuff. I like getting things every single turn when I play a game, and that's true in Valeria Card Kingdoms, or Valeria Dice Kingdoms, Dice Kingdoms of Valeria. As you build out your citizens, you're going to get more and more, so it has that citizen growth, that same thing I like in Valeria, again, Valeria Card Kingdoms, I like here as well, in the sense that you're going to be building out your citizens, getting more and more and more, and getting more and more resources, and you have to figure out that exact perfect balance as to when to start cashing out on your engine, versus when are you still building up your engine. There's a trade-off there, and you have to figure out what makes the most sense, what's going to give you the most points in there. So it has that general Valeria vibe, it has that general Valeria universe. You're going to be getting all these various perks, as it has a degree of interweaving from the various tracks as you try to choose different bonuses, which will give you different bonuses on other tracks. As you build a citizen, you're going to start getting things on the wall. As you defeat monsters, you're going to go ahead and start getting coins. As you use coins, you can use them for monuments. Everything kind of interlinks together in different ways, so it has that cascading dice mechanism that you're used to in, well, many roll and writes. That much is very present here. As far as what I don't like in the game, first of all, it's too easy to get the numbers you want. That blue die, in my opinion, while it gives the dice an essential degree of flexibility for high numbers, the flip side of it is it gives you too much variety in what you want. There's effectively 6 options you have every single turn before you even get to dice manipulation, and 6 options just means it doesn't feel like a challenge, it just feels like you're checking off whatever you want to check off in the game. So it's just too easy to get what you want in the game, which makes this entire process feel more like picking which ice cream flavor you want, as opposed to an actual engine of choice and consequence, if that makes sense. The pathway is a little too procedural. You're just checking things off, you're doing stuff, you're getting stuff. It doesn't feel like there's a high degree of challenge, it just feels like you're picking. And so to that extent, the entire thing, very little of it feels actually rewarding. It's fun to go through it, but very little of it felt like a strong challenge or particularly rewarding. It just felt like rolling dice and checking things off, which you can arguably describe most rolling dice that way. I'm not denying that. I didn't feel the sense of challenge in this one. It just felt like you can kind of get whatever you want. That's before you even get to the fact that you can very quickly, very early on in the game, start manipulating the dice in ways that will further give you the flexibility to get whatever you want in the game. As far as I can see others not liking, these monster tracks down here can absolutely be the difference between winning and losing. In a game that isn't that tight, the incidental aspect of who managed to complete a monster first could be the difference between like a chunk of extra bonus points. It could be a 4 or 5 point swing. In a game that tends to be around 50 points, that could be a big difference. Not a big deal. Not a lot over there, but it could be a factor there. As far as final thoughts on Dice Kingdoms of Valeria, if you got the general sense that I both don't have a lot to complain about, but also not a lot to praise, that's really how I feel about Dice Kingdoms of Valeria. There's not a lot to complain about here. There's also not a lot to praise. In a world full of a ton of amazing roll and write games in which the bar is constantly being upped, I feel Dice Kingdoms of Valeria would have been a great game that I would have raved about 5 years ago. But where it is right now, I just don't know if it brings anything new to the table past the Valeria Kingdoms IP on top of the game. And frankly, I'm a huge fan of Valeria Card Kingdoms, and I just don't see a good enough reason to own or recommend this over other games. To be very clear, it's not a bad game. I had a fun time with it. I would happily play it again if I'm kind of evaluating on its own as opposed to evaluating it compared to the other roll and write games I could play. Dice Kingdoms of Valeria is totally fine, totally passable, but it doesn't do anything notable in my opinion, so the only reason I can really recommend it is if you're specifically someone who wants to get all the games in the Valeria universe, and I'm saying that as somebody who's a fan of the Valeria universe, and this one, I don't know if it's one for me. Overall, 3 out of 5. It's totally fine. It's just not doing anything special or new. As far as other game recommendations, first of all, Valeria Card Kingdoms. Still my favorite game in the genre of rolling dice and everyone gets things. I love Valeria Card Kingdoms and heartily recommend it to everyone. Heartily. Whenever I say heartily, people sometimes hear hardly. I hardly recommend it. That's not good. I heartily recommend Valeria Card Kingdoms. But then second of all, if you're looking for a roll and write with a degree more of complexity and interweaving, well, decisions going on in the game, Three Sisters is one that is really solid. It just came out this past year, and it gives you that cascading aspect, but with a lot more of an engine behind it that I think is more engaging. In any case, and until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one.